Yeah, I think that's good. Yes, Byron. Yep.
How many individuals do you believe that this email went to? 2 or 3? Dozens? What's your sense?
There's no indication it was widely distributed. I can't be any more specific than that right now, but word did filter up to a lieutenant who reported this to a captain. That's really what began our look at this incident.
No indication widely distributed, but somewhere in the Boston Police Department, somewhere in the National Guard, the numbers you don't know. That's correct?
Right.
But,
yes.
I wanted to ask, can this officer be terminated? Won't civil service protect him? How would you contest that?
The officer will have appeals rights after whatever punishment is meted out. And civil service will possibly review it. Arbitrators will possibly review it. It can go even further into the courts, but that's something that will happen down the road.
When you go, Commissioner,
Let's go. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. My name is Ronald Hampton. I'm the Executive Director of the National Black Police Association. Will there be some attempt to look at the officer's record of service in the community, including his arrest, other things that have to do with how he formulates his practices on a day-to-day basis in the street, and those relationships? Will that also be a part of the internal investigation?
Yes, it's actually already begun. We ordered that to occur at the same time that the investigation was commenced on the written documents. Right now, Deputy Superintendent Cox is going through every arrest, every ticket, every field interrogation card that was filled out by the officer, and we're going to do random samplings of the individuals that he came in contact with to see if there were any problems. I'm sorry, you had a question. Yep.
When you conduct a termination hearing, when you start out the hearing, is there a presumption that the person has done something so bad that they should be fired, or is the presumption one of the penalties for what he or she has done?
I think more the former. This is termed a termination hearing. What's the timetable on something like that, termination hearing, possible appeal? Absent some arguable issue like the officer's counsel being on vacation, we should be able to wrap this up in a week to 10 days. Obviously, there may be mitigating factors that I don't know about right now, but I expect an expeditious results from this investigation and the hearing to happen quickly.
Are we talking about one memo or a series of memos or emails?
Only one memo.
Commissioner, even though you've spoken out against these words and you said that you don't think department email was used, there are people who said, well, maybe he was just exercising his free speech rights. And what do you say to that?
We have a relationship that we need to maintain with the community. A police officer is a public official, and they certainly have First Amendment rights, but they can't cross the line, and we believe this document crosses the line.
Commissioner, this email is one that was troubling to you. You took quick action. Are there other private communications that you've taken action on we don't know about?
No.
So nothing of this nature?
Correct.
How are you going to handle, what are you going to do or say to the individuals who received this email? Will they be under investigation as well to see if they hold the same kind of views?
As part of a thorough investigation, we will talk to anyone who received it or who indicated that they saw it, whether it was published hand-to-hand or published through the email system or any other way.
I guess what I'm asking is how concerned are you about the people being on the receiving end, that there's maybe some sort of,
Well, I'm actually encouraged because this came to us very quickly. And everything I've heard from, not only from across the department, but particularly from the district station involved here, is that officers are taken aback by this activity. And it's clear to me that this is an aberration.
Commissioner, to your knowledge, this officer had never made similar remarks anywhere in private before. There was no such indication of these views?
Not that I know of.
And to that point, can you talk a little bit about what sort of screening process is in place at the academy to pick up on these types of attitudes?
Certainly. There is an internal, an extensive background investigation that is conducted of the candidates, where former employers are spoken to, former military supervisors are spoken to, friends, relatives, and neighbors of the prospective candidate to be a police officer are interviewed. There's also a psychological examination that is given. Although the psych examination doesn't specifically target racism per se, because it's not a mental health issue as it's described to me by psychiatrists, Any kind of lack of judgment or problems with temper would be disclosed in that review. And in this particular case, that was not the situation.
Being that some would argue that he sort of fell through the cracks here in terms of the academy process, which was, not too long ago, do you think that maybe this warrants sort of a look at what type of process is in place?
We're constantly reviewing our processes, and when something serious like this happens, we always will review what our systems are. But we have to rely on the information that we receive from the background check, from whatever doctors do the interviews, and also from the interaction that the individual has with the academy staff and their fellow officers. There's been no indication, no specific behavior up until this point that indicates a problem.
Could you tell us a little bit about you say you talked directly to Professor Gates, and tell us a little bit about his reaction and what you said to him?
I did. I reached out through Professor Ogletree yesterday and had a conference call with Professor Ogletree and with Professor Gates. Professor Gates really was just becoming aware of the situation. I wanted to call him before it broke in the press, and he told me that when he pulled up in front of his residence in the Vineyard that there were reporters outside his house again, and he didn't understand why. I explained to him what was happening. He was incredibly gracious and accepting of the apology, and thankful that we had taken immediate action against the officer. So we both look forward to meeting each other at some point in time, and I wished him luck today with his meeting.
Is there any other thing you could do possibly with a person who shows a hateful attitude towards part of the population that he serves besides just firing?
That's a good question. I guess it depends on how egregious the conduct is, and our system of discipline is set up based upon exactly what happens and responding appropriately to that particular issue. And in this particular case, I think we're going down the right road.
Commissioner Davis, Reverend Brown spoke of more nuanced expression here of attitudes. We heard that there's more work to be done. Would you consider some sort of racial sensitivity training for the force? Are you looking into that?
We are actually engaged in a process of discussing things like promotions in the organization and the potential for disparate impact with minority candidates who have tried to work their way up into the command ranks of the department. As you can see, we have a diverse members of our command staff, especially at the level of deputy and superintendent. Those numbers are not reflected in the ranks of sergeant, lieutenant, and captain. And we're working closely with groups in the community, including Minister Don and others, to talk about the testing process and to see how we can level a playing field in that situation. Castro v. Beecher in Massachusetts put minority officers on the job. Now we have to talk about moving everyone into the ranks that wants to be in the ranks and that has the capacity. We have to make sure that the testing process is done fairly and it's based upon dimensions that we need. Not only a written exam, but also dimensions like leadership and morale building, things like that. We have to measure those more appropriately, and that's what we're talking about right now.
One more question.
Will you be releasing an email?
Yes.
When?
They can talk to Elaine. It'll be released sometime. I guess we're going to do that, Elaine.
You mentioned that this incident is an aberration.
Yeah, I see it, yeah.
You mentioned that this incident is an aberration. When throughout the country, these type of incidents are popping up all over the place, and including Massachusetts, constantly. I mean, at what point do you stop putting out the fire and saying, okay, this is perpetual, this is just nature, this is going to happen?
Well, I'm not one to say this is just nature, this is going to happen. I think several of the speakers here this morning have told the truth, and that is we have come a long way since the 1950s and the 1960s in our diversity in the police department, in our relationship with the community, and we're going to continue improving on that. We are not perfect, so don't take my statement that this is an aberration to mean that this is not a problem. This is a problem not only in a police department, but throughout society. It's one of these issues that we need to talk more about, that we need to get to the bottom of, and I'm encouraged by what's happening in Washington today. I'm encouraged that things that are tragic in their initial manifestation can work into a starting point for more appropriate conversations. That's what we have here. We really have a chance at a new beginning, and that's really what we're going to try to accomplish. Yes.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you.